against Kirk. A Utah Valley spokesperson says a suspect is not in custody. A motive is not known at this time. President Trump just posted on Truth Social the following: the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. The statement there from President Trump as Charlie Kirk, we are told now, has died. Scott McFarland, our justice correspondent, with me now from Washington. Scott, when it comes to the investigation, we were told earlier that there was a suspect, and now we're told that person has been let go.
Yeah, a university statement given shortly after the shooting. It said a suspect was in custody and that the campus is closed. The university then changed the statement to reflect that a suspect is not in custody, or they took that part away from their statement, which gives the indication that there is either a manhunt underway or a suspect about which we don't know the condition or the location. The FBI and the ATF are among the investigators on the scene, along with local police. But let's take a look at that Utah Valley University statement. It says on September 10th, 2025, 12:20, it's Mountain Time, a single shot rang out in the quad near the food court on the Utah Valley University Orem campus. That's as Mr. Charlie Kirk began speaking at his planned rally. We can confirm that Mr. Kirk was shot. We don't know his condition. The suspect is not in custody. Police are still investigating. Campus is closed for the rest of the day. So you have federal law enforcement on scene. You have university police and local police. The FBI's Salt Lake City field office is there as well and responding. But there's no information now as to if there's a suspect that's known to law enforcement, where that suspect is, if a suspect is wounded, in custody, or otherwise. So we'll wait to see what law enforcement has to tell us. But that's obviously an enormous variable right now as the campus remains closed and as the country reacts to this tragedy.
Okay, Scott McFarland, thank you so much. Certainly a shock to the system. Reaction pouring in from across the political spectrum this afternoon as Charlie Kirk, people trying to process his death here. Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joined us as we watch this video. Ed, this is the moment that he was shot. Blood was then seen pouring from the side of his head, from his neck, and now this.
That's right. We're now more than an hour since this happened, and the concern and the prayers expressed by Republican leadership especially came quickly. We've seen several Democratic Party leaders as well condemn political violence in this country. This is yet another high-profile example of it. And I think, Maurice, it's important that we acknowledge that there are probably many people watching right now who don't necessarily know who Charlie Kirk is, are not familiar with the work he's been doing for the last several years, because in our increasingly digital and divided world, he may not have been served up to them in their algorithm and in their feeds. And he is a 31-year-old from the Chicago suburbs, as you said, founded this group Turning Point USA back in 2012, inspired by the Tea Party movement. And he very quickly became a really influential conservative leader, especially among younger conservatives, galvanizing them to vote for various Republican candidates, and became very close with the Trump family, the president, Donald Trump Jr. especially. He was among those that pushed now President Trump to select J.D. Vance as his running mate, believing that Vance reflected the future of the Make America Great Again movement, and was able to convince him to do that. And then last year, during the presidential transition, was in Palm Beach at Mar-a-Lago on a regular basis, meeting with the president directly, handpicking potential leaders for the new Trump administration, cabinet secretaries and other senior government officials, weighing in, saying that they were key to the new government. And he was hosting, in this case, as you can see there on the 10th, the American Comeback Tour. This was the opening of this tour that was set to go to other campuses across the country. They regularly draw thousands of people, mostly students, mostly men. And as you see there on the tent, it says, "Prove me wrong." He had this popular segment where he would essentially sit at a table, and in this case under a tent, and invite people who disagree with him on issues to, quote, prove me wrong. And they would have an exchange of ideas that was generally respectful. And it could be on anything from issues in the Constitution to something in the cultural zeitgeist at the moment. And the goal was to just have those free flow of exchanges between them. But he was most especially an influential and key figure in the Trump movement, again, close with the president. And many in the White House who this afternoon are quite stricken by this news. Our colleagues who are over at the White House say when this news broke, as they learned about it as we did, many of them rushed into closed-door meetings and have been seen to be quite upset by this, understandably, because this is somebody who worked with them to get Donald Trump reelected. And in many cases probably weighed in on whether or not they should be holding the jobs they do, and would have campaigned alongside him back in the day.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you for that. Vice President J.D. Vance weighing in, saying, eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, sending out a prayer for Charlie Kirk. 31 years old, a major figure on the right. Even if you don't know him, he was known and loved by many people across the country. Let's go to our CBS News Chief Washington analyst, Robert Costa. You can't overstate his impact on the right, Bob.
A tragic moment with many developments at this time. The governor of Utah has just posted on social media, Governor Cox, that he spoke with President Trump and said that, quote, we will bring to justice the individual responsible for this tragedy. So President Trump, talking to many people involved on the phone, CBS News, has also just learned that the House of Representatives, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, just is called for a moment of silence to recognize the death of Charlie Kirk and to offer prayers for his family. This is a seismic political moment in American politics. While he is so young, as Ed O'Keefe said, he is someone with enormous influence and power, and this comes at a politically charged moment in this country where so many people feel on edge. You feel it when you cover events, when you cover the President of the United States. But this is someone, I've been covering conservative politics for nearly 20 years. He is such a star because of the way he articulated his views and was able to sit down with people not only on the right and in the center, but to sit down with figures like Governor Gavin Newsom of California and many Democrats. This is the death of someone with influence, but also the death of a rising political star. So many Republicans on Capitol Hill are heartbroken because they saw him as a friend. They also saw him as a real leader of conservative politics in this country. And for the president to make the statement about his death tells you a lot about how President Trump, who has been the Republican nominee for the past 3 presidential cycles, how he feels about this man. And it's hard to quantify and characterize the amount of anger, frustration, pain that is being felt in so many corners of American politics right now, especially those who knew Charlie Kirk.
And Bob, he had no small part in helping Donald Trump get reelected, right? I mean, Trump gives him a lot of credit for getting out there and getting the youth votes.
President Trump certainly does. Over the years, I've talked to President Trump, and he believes he's always at the center of his political movement, and he's the one who drives it forward. But even he has acknowledged in recent years that it was people like Charlie Kirk who, in the wake of his defeat in 2020, stood by him through legal challenges, through other issues. Charlie Kirk helped President Trump on the outside rebuild a political movement that ultimately lifted him to the White House in 2024. And you see these crowds, it's reminiscent of a Trump rally, but with a younger audience. And he was someone who connected President Trump to younger people who felt displaced in the culture or in the political system. And in the way others on the left and center have rallied youth, Charlie Kirk was someone who rallied youth on the right. And he became a force on college campuses, a force inside the Republican Party. I've spoken to Republican politicians in recent years who said speaking at a Turning Point USA rally was just as powerful sometimes for their own constituencies as speaking at a Trump rally. And this is going to, already it is, based on our reporting here, convulsing so much of the political conversation in this country. The agitation, the anger, it is coursing through so many of the text messages, the phone calls I've had within the past hour. Outrage that this violence is having such an impact on a major American political figure like Charlie Kirk, who was as high profile as almost anyone else on the right, competing with those on television in elected office. He was seen as someone with political capital, not just famous, but influential.
Yeah, Bob, and I think a word you used there, connect. He really knew how to connect with the people, with the voters, and help Donald Trump get reelected. The reaction pouring in from across the political spectrum, as we keep telling you. Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, I should say, saying political violence has no place in America. The shooting is horrifying, and I'm praying for Charlie Kirk and his family. I want to bring in Jordan last as we look at these images now, haunting images. Jordan was at today's event at Utah Valley University, and he saw what happened there. Sir, thanks for joining us. Can you take us through where you were, what you saw, and your reaction?
Sure. The event started about 12 p.m. I got there right in time, walked past their security detail and everything, tried to find the line to ask him a question. I actually was looking forward to challenging him on a couple things. I really respect him. I wanted to talk to him, and made my way over to where I thought the line was, which is maybe directly, I would say 50 to 100 feet to the right of Charlie Kirk. I guess, yeah, at his 3 o'clock. It was only a few minutes. Like the first question had just finished. It was kind of a longer question, so they had maybe done that for 10 or so minutes, and they had just gotten into the second question, I believe. And that's when I heard like a huge pop. Whenever I hear sounds like that, first I think, okay, maybe it's just fireworks. But after a few seconds, all of us kind of standing together, it's a very suspicious sound to hear with tons of people. There were so many people there. And there was I guess like a cement pillar or wall kind of right behind me. So as this suspicious sound has just gone off, I kind of put myself behind the wall. It was very, very good cover in case anything was happening. And then my brain was processing, it's a very loud sound. It seemed to me to come, in my mind, it came directly from the center of the crowd. I don't know where it came from, but that's just what my mind I guess was thinking. And then that's when, after a few seconds, people started saying like, oh my goodness, Charlie was shot. I saw him fall to the ground. And that's when I realized this is a serious situation. We all crouched down. We have great cover, but I was then just listening for more shots because obviously this could become a much worse tragedy than it already was. And there were no more shots coming. We were maybe 30 seconds passes, and that's when people started yelling, run. There was a door maybe 10 feet away from me. I had to lose my cover to get to the door, but it seemed like the best option. So crouch down and just go with the people.
Yeah.
As soon as I got through the door, I ran as fast as I could, I guess, and as far as I could.
Jordan, I'm glad you're all right to tell us about this. From all accounts, the atmosphere was, pretty pleasant, right? Pretty chilled. People were into it. They were listening to their speaker. I'm wondering, you said security detail. You passed a security detail. Others have told us there was no security. So describe for us what it was like to get into this. I guess it's a quad there at the school.
Yeah, it's like a courtyard. There was definitely security. I mean, I'm not an expert on security, but they had the guys with little curly wire coming out. So I assume that those were security detail. It was definitely there.
But no metal detectors.
Did they? No, there were no metal detectors. There was no checking anything. And in fact, I've been in not a shooting situation, but other dangerous situations before. And so I'm often thinking about these things. I did think, anyone in here could have a gun. No one checked me. So I was, it's just a thought that came through my head. Yeah, it's very tragic.
Kind of a haunting image there. All right. Well, Jordan Last, thank you for sharing with us what you saw and what you did in those terrifying moments. I want to bring in senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Weijia, a lot of reaction coming in from the White House where he was very close with so many people there.
That's right, Maurice. I was actually meeting with a White House official today when the news broke, and then several staffers were in and out of the area, and they were all visibly shaken, deeply saddened, and throughout the day have seen that from officials here at the White House, including tears and people consoling each other, because, Maurice, this wasn't just a trusted advisor to President Trump. This was a friend to so many people here at the White House. They worked closely with Charlie Kirk during the first administration, during the president's reelection campaigns, and of course now as he is in office for the second time. This is somebody who has a direct line to President Trump and his inner circle. And so it is a very solemn day here at the White House, including for President Trump. Charlie Kirk has been here to the White House several times. I remember one of the last times he was here, we shook hands, and he was always so excited and proud to have this relationship with President Trump. Most recently, Maurice, he was here at the end of May for an event, and the president was asked a question about the youth vote, and he pointed right to Charlie and said, you know, TikTok was a big reason why I won the young vote, and Charlie was the first person who told me to engage on TikTok. So he credits Charlie with so much of his victory, so much of his successes politically, and again, we are hearing reaction from the president and from so many other officials here at the White House today, Maurice.
Okay, Weijia Jiang, thank you so much for that. Our correspondent Chris Van Cleve right now is outside the Turning Point USA's headquarters. That is in Phoenix. That is Charlie Kirk's organization. Again, Charlie Kirk was 31, founded that, co-founded that 12 years ago, or when he was about 18. Chris, what are you hearing there? What are you seeing now?
Well, the office behind us here, you can see, is now blocked off. There is security here. We understand employees were sent home after the shooting. Flowers that were taken inside the building here. You know, Charlie Kirk was an Arizona resident. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs just put out a statement, Maurice, saying that she is deeply saddened by this news, adding that this tragedy is not about who Charlie Kirk supported politically. It is about the devastating loss of a father, a neighbor, and an Arizonan who called this state home and whose life was cut short by senseless violence. It's not the first time an Arizona political figure has been impacted by political violence. Of course, Gabby Giffords was shot and nearly killed at an event in Tucson here. So it does sort of echo of that. And I can tell you, in talking to people who do work on events with several of the MAGA influencers today, they are very rattled. One of them is saying this is literally his worst nightmare playing out, something that they thought about when they were doing big events. And now a rethinking of what that security footprint will look like. Ben Shapiro, we understand, has canceled an event he had tomorrow in California. His team certainly rethinking how they move forward with big public events.
Okay, Chris Van Cleve outside Turning Point USA's headquarters there in Phoenix. It is just after 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. We're on the air with a special report as Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist, has died after being shot during an event at Utah Valley University. 31 years old. He was the CEO and co-founder of Turning Point USA, known for mobilizing young Republican voters. Kirk was shot in the neck earlier this afternoon. The suspect is still at large. Police say a search is underway. Utah Valley University police say they are going building to building right now to try to evacuate people who are still there. President Trump posted about Kirk on Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Those words from President Trump. Let's go now to our CBS News national security contributor, Samantha Vinograd. And Sam, the talk about the security detail, he had some people around him, but no metal detectors, nothing like that. That's something that's most certainly going to be looked at going forward.
Well, Maurice, this is just a devastating development, and certainly there will be an after action of what security protocols could have been in place to try to prevent this horrific incident. But right now, there's certainly a heavy focus on how to apprehend whomever was responsible for this terrible incident. We don't yet know if law enforcement authorities have actually identified a suspect, if they've been able to ascertain whom in the crowd was responsible for shooting Charlie Kirk. So the first order of business is certainly to identify a suspect. They can do that through eyewitness accounts, through social media, through videos from the scene, and other uses of advanced technology. Once they do identify who was responsible for this incident, they will certainly be working to locate the individuals through warrants at the individual's property, reviewing their social media, talking to friends and family, and then, if necessary, employing a range of federal, state, and local law enforcement assets to try to track the individual if that individual is at large. What we don't yet know is whether there still is an ongoing threat to the public. If a suspect has not been identified and has not been apprehended, Maurice, that may in fact be the case.
Sam, anything from the video we have seen, anything tell you or give you any clue as to the distance of the shooter? Because initially the local authorities there thought they had him, or whoever it was, from some 200 feet away, I believe it was. I looked at it, untrained eye, I thought it was maybe from close range. What do you make of it?
I think it's a little hard to tell. It certainly doesn't look like the individual was in the first few rows in the crowd that you're seeing on your monitor right now. And various witnesses have indicated that it sounded like it was more of a rifle rather than a pistol. But I would imagine that law enforcement, federal, state, and local, again, the FBI and other parts of the federal government are likely involved at this point, are likely reviewing video from the event itself and trying to ascertain where the shot came from. There's advanced technology that they can use to trace the path of the bullet that fatally struck Mr. Kirk, and then from there to try to capture footage to identify the suspect.
Okay, Sam Vinograd, thank you for that. Our senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Reaction is pouring in from across the spectrum, Ed.
It is, Maurice, and importantly, it's pouring in from across both political parties. Obviously, the president, the vice president, and others in the Trump administration, from the moment the reports first surfaced, asking for prayers and now recalling their late friend and fellow conservative activist and leader. But we've also notably seen Democrats. We heard Chris Van Cleve there mention the governor of Arizona, Katie Hobbs. California Governor Gavin Newsom was one of the first notable Democrats to weigh in on this, saying that the attack on Charlie Kirk is disgusting, vile, and reprehensible in the United States of America. We must reject political violence in every form. And what's notable about Newsom weighing in is the fact that earlier this year, as he launched his own podcast, the governor invited Kirk on to discuss essentially how Kirk had successfully done it for years for Republicans, and what it was perhaps the Democrats could learn in their engagement digitally and in events like this to reach younger voters. As anyone may recall from last year, the big takeaway was that the Republican Party, the Trump campaign, quite effectively engaged and galvanized younger, more digitally focused voters to their side. And the Democratic Party ever since has been trying to sort out how to do it. Well, Kirk was one of those that had been doing it for several years, and Newsom, in that case, at least wanted to get to know him. And they had a rather meaty and respectful dialogue about their differences, which is what Kirk was trying to do today here in Utah. We also heard from the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Political violence is never acceptable. My thoughts and prayers are with Charlie Kirk and his family. And then Gabby Giffords, of course, the congresswoman who survived an assassination attempt, and said she was horrified, and political disagreements are always allowed, but we must never allow America to become a country that confronts those disagreements with violence. There was a short time ago, Maurice, a moment of silence held on the floor of the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson asked colleagues to rise and do so. Sounds like there may have been some in the chamber, unclear who and where, who tried to interrupt that silence. I don't know if we can play this.
A moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
So that was earlier in the House chamber. Speaker Johnson very quickly ran there to draw attention to it and have members of both parties stand there at least momentarily in honor of Kirk. This was before word officially came that he had died. So it shows you very quickly how quickly he galvanized people on both sides of the aisle to speak out, not only to denounce the violence, but to acknowledge the influence that Charlie Kirk had.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. Let's go to Justice correspondent Scott McFarland now. Scott, first we were told they have a suspect, and now we're told they had the wrong guy.
Yeah, we've been blanketing our FBI contacts with questions about this over the last few minutes because there is a lack of clarity over what is the status of any manhunt for whoever pulled the trigger today. The Utah Valley University statement issued mid-afternoon was that a suspect was in custody. About 20 minutes later, they walked that back. And the FBI, we know, is on the ground at the site of this shooting. They've given no updates on whether they are pursuing somebody, have somebody, or if somebody is even alive who's involved with this shooting. The Utah Valley University police are helping to respond to this, the local police. And we know, according to folks at the university who've spoken with CBS News, they're going door to door now on campus to help evacuate anybody who's there. They want everybody off this campus. And if you are doing a door-to-door evacuation, if you are offering to come get people and walk them off the campus, that's indicative of a kinetic threat, of something that is not fully settled at this point. But we're going to keep tapping into FBI sources here to get some sense of what's going on. But I'll tell you, it is unorthodox now. We are 2 hours and about 20 minutes since this shooting, and we do not have an update from law enforcement if they have somebody either in their sights or in handcuffs.
Door to door, Scott, that suggests a dicey situation there at Utah Valley University. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Right now, former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Whatley joins us. Mr. Whatley, you knew Charlie Kirk. Our condolences for sure. What can you tell us about him, and what are your thoughts right now?
Well, my thoughts are with his family, and obviously, want to offer our prayers for me and Suzanne both. Charlie was a friend. Charlie was a father. Charlie was a husband. Charlie, every time that I met him, he had a very intense smile on his face. He was a happy warrior, and he's a guy who fought for what he believed in, and he believed in America, and he believed in his family. And I think this is going to leave a big hole in America, really, that when we see this kind of a senseless tragedy, we cannot allow this to take place in America anymore. We really need to do everything we can to kind of prevent these political fights from escalating to violence like this.
Can we talk about that a little bit, sir? Because, I mean, everybody's wondering now, what happened? How do we get to this point where now this is almost I don't want to say not surprising, but not expected, but people are still sort of reacting like I knew something like this would happen. How did we get here?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely tragic, is what it is. I think that when we think about President Trump being shot earlier this summer, 2 different attempts on his life, and it's really easy, in the moment to say it's the other side. But the fact is that there is no place in America for this type of political violence whatsoever. The fact is that a husband and a father has been taken from us way too early in his life.
A little more about what type of father and husband and man Charlie Kirk was. Hard to believe we're talking about him in the past tense right now, but someone who was a provocateur, who did it with a certain amount of joy, right?
Well, look, I think that he approached every day with a certain amount of joy, and it was great to be able to work with him, to do events with him, to spend time with him. He was a very intense, very loyal person. He was very demanding, but in a good way. And I think that he brought a passion to politics. He brought a passion to what he did with Turning Point. I think that's unbelievably commendable. And like I said, it will be a big hole in certainly my world and everybody else's world that had a chance to know Charlie.
Okay, thank you so much, former RNC Chair Michael Whatley. We appreciate your remembrances there. Reaction coming in from Governor Wes Moore, Democrat of Maryland, condemned in strongest possible terms the attack. You know, you see this kind of reaction from Republicans as well. Tom Tillis, a senator, praying for Charlie Kirk. Political violence has no place in our society. So I bring in our chief Washington analyst, Robert Costa. You're hearing the condemnations far and wide, yet here we are once again, Bob.
Here we are once again, the specter of violence continuing to hover over the United States and our political culture. You see leaders in both parties expressing horror at what is unfolding here on a college campus today, a time when so many students are going back to school, starting their classes in September. It's the carnage of violence at a political leader. And this country has seen it many times before. You think about President Lincoln. You think about the shots fired on President Reagan. Of course, President Kennedy being gunned down in 1963, and other political figures have been shot. You think about George Wallace running for president being shot. He survived. Charlie Kirk, at such a young age, being gunned down, assassinated at a political event. This is something that is bracing for so many of the people we cover. Yes, there is a political debate that's often very testy in this country, but so often behind the scenes, most people I cover see the dignity in the other person across the way. Violence is not part of the American system. It's something that has scarred America's history, but it's not part of how we have dialogue. And Charlie Kirk, whether you are a defender of his, an advocate, an ally, a friend, or a critic, he is someone who was in the arena. And so many people, whether they're activists like Charlie Kirk, who are media figures, or they're political figures and leaders who are in elected office, they believe that by going in the arena, they may be bruised ideologically, they may be bruised when it comes to their rhetoric, but they won't necessarily have to face this sort of violence. But we've seen the attempted assassination of lawmakers like Steve Scalise within the past decade or so. Of course, President Trump facing his own assassination attempts. Gabby Giffords, the former member of Congress. Both parties have dealt with this, and now today, a real rising star dead at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure, Bob. And what it means for our politics going forward, that will be chewed over as we move forward here. To recap for you, the conservative activist Charlie Kirk has died after being shot in the neck during an event at Utah Valley University. A search for the suspect is underway, and a motive is still unknown. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight, Special Report.
Which is on the landlord's property. I did pass their sidewalk. Now I'm on the main walk. Dogs are both on my right-hand side.
And your dogs are leashed?
Both are leashed, and I have
Just a second.
double leash.
Careful, careful, careful. Careful, careful, careful. Are those the leads that you were walking with on February 8th?
Yes.
Not retractable ones?
No.
Okay, so pick up and let me see what you had for each dog.